Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 11 of This Is the Year, the Swiss AI podcast, and in the meantime, the number one podcast on artificial intelligence in Europe. Gentlemen,
Wait, how did that happen? I'm surprised.
well, we have to visualize, right, Dennis? So it's like we have some new followers from different countries in Europe, for example, Portugal, Spain, and yeah, maybe it's not the number one yet, but we are getting there.
But I'm actually, since that you mentioned that, I'm really excited to share. I'm really excited because next week I'm going to travel to Brazil. So hopefully we can bring some people from there that I know plenty of people that are interested in this world, have some companies, and maybe we can start hitting our first followers outside of
the
Europe.
European dominance.
Yes.
Sounds good. But you're still gonna do the episode, no? You're gonna bring the equipment, hopefully, to Brazil.
Yeah. I will bring all the equipment, and probably I will just remove the background or not
To
for
some
you to see.
tropical island.
Yeah, the tropical and the amazing weather, because there it's going to be cold.
Well, cold
18
for
degrees.
Brazilian equivalent,
Yeah.
or actual cold. Okay.
No, cold for them because it's the minimal temperature is 18 degrees. The maximum is 33. This is based on historical data. So it's going to be awesome for me.
So a little bit of a
And
cold,
for us too, because we're
cold
going to
in
be
there.
there through the podcast, seeing you, talking to you, and maybe you can get some insights on how AI is being used over there and how AI could be used over there.
I was
Yeah, I
actually
think
many years ago on Florianopolis in Brazil. I went to this. I mean, I was living there for a short while, and I went to these tech meetups there. It was a pretty good ecosystem in Brazil they have. So, Benne, maybe you have some similar stories to share when you're going there. Good. Let me finish up the introduction before Benne interrupted. We have two gentlemen with us. I mean, you already know both of them since the last 10 episodes, but for the new listeners in the audience, the ones who don't know, we have the AI magician with us today. He is summoning AI agents. He's building customer-facing chatbots. And yeah, as you now heard, he's traveling to Brazil, but he's actually originally from Brazil. So Benne, happy to have you back on the pod. How is life? Otherwise, you're ready for the trip?
yeah, I'm really excited. I haven't been there. It's my first time. Yeah, thrilled for that. I just one thing, even though I summoned, I think that's more of a João's thing. I'm just more
Summoning AI?
Yeah.
But at least you're going to share the magic of AI over there, I think. There's still a bit of magic to go around.
Yeah, when I go there, I will be summoning AI.
Of course.
Good. Then with us as well, the second co-host of the This Is the Year podcast, the AI wizard. He is summoning AI agents, really focusing on parenting AI, LangChain. We go a little bit more into details today. We're particularly discussing customer-facing solutions. In the last episode, we talked about this is kind of the holy grail of security. More on that just in a little second. João, you are also back with us. Good to see you again in the digital version. Last week, I saw you in the panel that we've had in Lisbon. How is your life going?
My life's going pretty well so far. The constructions outside my house are still ongoing, which is still a bit of a bother. I'm trying to figure out a way that we can replace all the noise and all the construction people with AI, so it's a bit quieter, maybe a bit quicker too. But other than that, everything's going amazing. Excited to have Benne somewhere else, at least like a few thousand miles away.
I was actually waiting for that when I said it before, that you exactly say that. So you have 10,000 kilometer distance between you two. This will certainly help.
That's the amount of love that João has for me. Thank you.
Exactly. Good. Gentlemen, let's get in.
I want you to see the world. I want you to experience things far away from here.
Always good. Good to hear that you get along so well. Excellent. Gentlemen, let's get into some of the first notions today. Customer-facing solutions that were just recently released on the market. I think this is the year also for particularly these solutions as well. Last year, maybe a little bit less. This year with new models coming out and the capabilities are increasing by the week. We see very large companies, and maybe I can put that on the screen here. UBS, one of the largest Swiss banks and one of the largest global banks, announced these AI-based research assistants. Just in a very brief nutshell, the elevator pitch for them is these large institutions, for example, banks, they're kind of doing a lot of research on particular industries, and they're sharing this research either via a report, and all these analysts and maybe customers are actually reading them. But at the same time, in the past, they had all these analysts, like actual humans, basically just reading the report and giving some sort of live summary of what they investigated, for example, on AI industry or on some other particular industry as well. Now, this has been basically replaced with AI avatars, which is kind of insane to think about, but this is exactly what the news really is. So OpenAI and Synthesia, which is basically a company that's enabling these avatars, most likely with some LLM powered in the background. They're now explaining this research based on the human basically trained avatar. So you have an analyst, a human that is now a digital version in form of an avatar, and they're sharing this research. Why is this so important? And I'm very happy to get your take on that as well, João and Bene, is it's really saving a lot of money. They're investigating or forecasting 30 to 40% less cost for all this research and presentation, which is significant for a large multi-billion-dollar company like UBS. Guys, do you believe it's a good idea or a bad idea?
I think it's not only a good idea because they're reducing costs, but I think they're getting to a new demographic. Because you have this older generation that's used to reading the reports and PDFs that are like 20 pages long about an industry, but very soon you're going to have a very big client base, which is the Gen Z and Gen Alpha, that are used to having the short form video. So they want everything in TikToks or YouTube Shorts. And I think if you have that kind of research and you can have that kind of contact with your customers and you already have that pipeline to produce the videos and give them information, in this case, I think they're a bit more formal videos, but that can quickly be adapted to the short form, like more ADHD friendly video. And then you can have like whatever information you want to have for your increasingly young customer base, because you're going to have the Gen Alphas right now are not investing a whole lot, hopefully, but when they reach 18, they will. And you want to be their bank too, I'd imagine.
Well, it's a good point. I didn't think about it. I mean, I just thought about it from a technical perspective that we are now here because 2 years ago when we launched this photo generation SaaS, we also had in mind video generation. And back then, it still wasn't possible whatsoever. Even 1 year ago, I remember we were tinkering around using video models. So you're fine-tuning a particular avatar based on your selfies, but it just didn't work out in 2024. And now we have 2025, this stuff is working. Bene, you think it's a good or a bad idea? Let me give you also the chance to respond quickly to either accepting Joao's opinion or, as you often do, rejecting it.
Today I'm super friendly, so yeah, I agree with João. And again, this is a really good chance for them to reach different demographics because it's fairly easy with a few short sentences, because I think we tried that on some projects internally and we did find out that just changing a bit of the persona instructions, it changed quite a lot of the bot behavior, and it's quite cool, quite good and quite cool to see that kind of thing.
Yeah, you can have the same research be presented in a super formal, like here's the graphs, here's numbers kind of way, like a guy wearing a bow tie. But you can also have like a talking squirrel if you want to, like
and like changing this meme. You remember this judge in the pandemic? That was like a cat. Do you remember that?
Yeah, using the Zoom filters. Did you see
exactly?
I think you're accompanying GCP's like the Google I/O event, and there are these new model, like the Veil model, capable of doing like voice output, not only the video output, but if it's doing like, for example, human interaction or two humans talking, it'll give them voices and it'll have audio in the video. So, and the audio that actually matches the lips. And so not only is it like a possibly a new threat in the video making world and like in the actors of the world, but also super useful for this kind of use case where you want to do videos presenting something. You can have an avatar with basically no training and just use Veo and have video and audio working for you.
I think the bottleneck probably so far was the lip synchronization. That's something I noticed last year, or even 2 years ago. Like you have the image itself is kind of okay, so movement is also okay. But then once you have to overlay the actual avatar talking with the actual script, it's never really matched. Because for us humans, even if you mute somebody on a video, you can still kind of read the lips, you know? So we sometimes...
You have that skill?
I do, yeah, you don't.
So you...
Well... Yes, I believe I do. So if I mute you,
see, okay, he couldn't understand. I was already in case because some of you couldn't understand. There's a video.
English accent, you know. So
I was talking to Cyril, and basically I started to say words but without any sound from my end, and he couldn't understand what I'm saying.
It doesn't always.
He lost
right?
it.
It's just live. But I mean,
it's way easier.
You can probably tell if you're moving your lips and then the text associated to it is completely different. So it's like it doesn't
for sure.
It doesn't.
You just did that. But now, going technically, I did have a POC last year for this, and we tried to do this part, the syncing, and basically you could do it, but it was a lot of processing power.
I mean, that's probably why now maybe with higher cloud infrastructure density, maybe they can now use these models with just running in the cloud, right? Not maybe some local setup.
Yeah, and I think the new model's already out from GCP. And it's not the first that they do in video generation. It's the Veil model, but it's the Veil 3, which was launched, I think, a couple days ago. The new capabilities, a lot of video generation didn't have audio. I think even besides the talking, it sometimes adds background noises, so birds or nature. And that kind of thing really helps creating a more realistic video, or at least eases the process of someone editing later. Then it doesn't have to add as much audio tracks to the file, because the file already comes with a lot of them.
Okay, I'm curious. Sorry, I'm curious. Do they replicate real life? Do they add the sound traffics if you have the window open?
I mean, from the demos that I've seen, and then I saw a guy doing a compilation of little short videos, it did add a couple birds flying by, the traffic sounds, but it wasn't super realistic. But it was really nice to have it again out of the box, with no extra prompting, no extra tools. Just you do a prompt and you get a video that has audio and has realistic audio with it.
So I think it's getting to the point that's good, because it can be annoying by nature.
Well, that's fair.
By default.
For me, the bigger signal is a more the philosophical approach here. Technically, yes, it's possible. It's a great, probably victory. But I think what they really also showcased just when they launched it, UBS, they were saying it has a high acceptance rate. So the population seems a little bit more educated now on AI-generated output, aka your clients seem to be more educated on AI-generated output. And that's really a significant move forward, if you ask me. Maybe if we just looked ahead, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years, yes, these avatars might be all over the place, and we're completely aware that they are not actually humans, but we're still trusting them and looking at them like they're a human entity, basically. Because at the end of the day, this is not like some emoji they had. It was actually the analyst itself, just trained on an AI model and just basically mimicking as if she or he would be talking live. So this is kind of the notion I was trying to bring across. We have the technical capabilities in this year. This is the year for that. But now we also have higher customer acceptance of AI-generated output coming from voicebots, chatbots, or videobots. So I think that's really
coming out of the uncanny valley. So for those unaware, the uncanny valley, if it's a robot, it's fine. It's a robot and you know it's different. But the closer it looks like a human in terms of voice, in terms of having a face, the closer it is, it gets to a point where it's uncanny. It's weird that it's something that looks kind of like a human, but not really. But it's a valley, not an abyss. So it gets to a point that it's so realistic that you either stop caring or you stop noticing. And I think we're slowly and gradually getting out of that valley. So the video and audio we're getting, I don't think it's fully human yet. I really like how OpenAI is doing voices in ChatGPT. I liked kinda the voice in Google's I/O event, their voice abilities. I don't think it's just like a human just yet, but I think it's close enough that it doesn't bother me.
Maybe regarding stuff that doesn't bother you, let's segue to AI-generated coding agents. OpenAI announced the launch of Codex, which is basically, again, an AI-based coding agent. But it's supposed to be a little bit more. But I think you, Joao, you both as well were a little bit pushing back when I introduced it into our group chat. What's the take on it? Is it not good enough, or is it just a kind of let's say, a last-minute shot against maybe Lovable or Versal V0 or Cursor? What do you think?
I think there's a really big market in coding. If you're a company and you want software developers, that's a big chunk of your payroll going into paying for someone. And if you have an AI tool, that's amazing. So I believe 100%, I don't have numbers, I'm not sure if anyone does, but there's probably $1 billion market in having software engineers as AI. Or in this case, AI as software engineer. I don't think we're at a point that we can fully replace software engineers, and we've talked about it in previous episodes, that we are slowly augmenting people, when software engineers can do a lot more with these tools. Cursor and I think it's Windsurf are valuable, they're valued at billions right now, and they're pretty much just forks or the variations of the editor that everyone's using, or a lot of people are using, which is VS Code. And so you can see the size of the market, that if you do a little variation of a code editor and you add AI and AI integration into it, now you have that same editor that is free, by the way, totally open source, but that variation with AI integration is valued at billions. And it's good, like, it helps people code faster, sure, but tools like Codex, it feels like sometimes OpenAI doesn't have anything to release because it's been a while since they've released a new model, and they just wanted to fill the air with something. I just wanted to say, hey, we're just still here. Because right now I think Google's taking the lead, and they're really, really scared that they're going to lose the basically #1 position.
Yeah, regarding that, I really shared this big part because a few days ago there was the Google event, Google I.O., and if you didn't watch, you should. It's amazing. And they kind of countered Codex from OpenAI. They released Jules.
Yeah, they all do.
They're doing super fast, and because of the amount of integrations that Google already has, and this is something that we talked on the beginning of the podcast, the biggest market players, what they're going to try to do is bring you to their ecosystem. And right now, Google's model, for me, it's the best one, Gemini 2.5. And they are already pushing a lot of integrations with everything that you might have. Even on my phone, I updated recently to the new Android, and it's Gemini included, embedded. So
I mean, it was certainly an eventful week. There is also Alpha Evolve by Google DeepMind that they are basically also releasing. It's an agent for designing advanced computer science algorithm. So this is also, again, just more releases from all over the place. But I think that the whole notion is it's been more pushed, and hopefully more users are jumping on these trains. And we've seen, as we discussed before with UBS, that they're actually implementing stuff for clients. Let me quickly segue to maybe some more topics that hopefully enable you in the audience to be building these solutions, again, in-house for your corps or for you as an entrepreneur as well. Ben, you made the demo of the Voicebot in our AI panel last week, just very, very high level. What are some initial design considerations, and maybe what is the stack that you've used to build it? Maybe just briefly for the audience.
Briefly, I used LangChain because it was a bit quicker. Jean is doing a faceback because he doesn't like it very much. But still, it wasn't. It was just to simplify a bit of the tool calling, because initially I used OpenAI tools because I was building with OpenAI, but I decided to change to Google. So to sum up, I had a Google account, cloud account. I used Python. I didn't use FastAPI because everything was at once, because since it was a demo and we had voice, adding things to Docker and putting on the cloud, it would be honestly a pain in the ass because of the drivers and connecting the audio from local microphones to that pod. So it was just easier to be running locally, and then the inference was invoking the Google endpoint. I used everything Google stack here. For the voice, for the chat, it was Gemini. I think it was 2.0 Flash. It wasn't the 2.5. And for the voice, also from Google, the text to speech and speech to text, everything from Google. It was a really sounding British voice. And we had an amazing trigger word. It took time to develop. Since I used a bit of vibe coding because time was of the essence here, it took me around 1 day. It only took that time, so I would say around 10 hours. It took that long only because I had some restrictions regarding SSL. Otherwise, it would have been a bit faster. The approach also for the input, I didn't use streaming because here the thing that matters the most. No, actually, I used streaming for the input, for the audio, because the idea of the bot was everyone was talking, and while it was talking, it was doing the processing of the audio for text, and we could see the conversation of everyone because we had the monitor showing that live transcription, and we had
6 panelists, maybe just for the audience, 6 panelists, and we were all having this interactive discussion, and the bot was capturing everything basically.
Yeah, so each one didn't have a microphone. I think there was a single microphone or a couple that were spread out across
there were 2 spread.
Yeah. But even then, it could manage to capture the voice. So, Bennett, the voice that was the model that was converting speech to text, was it running on your computer or was you running on the cloud?
Everything was on the cloud for that inferencing processing. Just I would say the project itself, it was locally, but for the inference for the LLMs, for the text to speech and speech to text, I was invoking Google Cloud for that.
Okay, and even then it was fairly fast. So we were talking, and sometimes I was seeing someone from the other end talking about like ML projects and looking at the board. We had a board behind us where the project was running, and you could see like the transcription that each one was talking about, so that the model later could read it and respond to us. So it was pretty fun. And the latency, did you measure it? Like, I think it was around maybe
It was less
10
than a
seconds
second
max.
for the transcription in the backend, because again, it was really fast. So sometimes it wasn't refreshing fairly quickly on the front end, because also we were using Streamlit. Streamlit is not the best library, but for POC it's the best one because it's fast to build. And we could, in the backend, it was fairly quick. And looking at the logs from Google Cloud, it was less than a second, the latency. The issue, I would say, the kind of issue that we had that was delayed a bit for us to have the response from the model, it was I wasn't using streaming for the audio. So
can you maybe explain that just for some people in the audience are not super technical, or maybe just getting started? Like, why not streaming, or maybe what is streaming in the first place?
Okay, streaming is it's probably not the best technical explanation, but for the overall audience to understand, it's basically instead of waiting.
Can I just jump in here?
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
I think I have like
he hasn't even tried
a possible analogy, which is like instead of dumping all the water at once, like instead of sending everything at once, you send it like piece by piece, because the models take time to write things out, right? Like if you want a whole book from George R.R. Martin, then you're gonna wait like 10 years, 15 years. Like he takes like those Game of Thrones books took a long time to write. But if you ask him, hey, every time you have a new chapter ready, or every time that there's a new page, just send me. Then you keep getting pages every few days. And in streaming, it's the same. So instead of waiting 10, 15 seconds for a whole text, for a whole response, then you can just wait half a second and you start to get it right away. And by the time you read what you got, you have more text to read. That's the thing you see on ChatGPT, where it starts to write your response. But I think in audio it works a bit differently, and I'll let Bene go at it.
So for streaming, basically you see this big delay between you asking and me answering, and even João speaking in the middle. Basically, I wanted to do this analogy. This time that I was waiting to give any answer whatsoever is non-streaming. And what João did was kind of streaming. I had to wait and process. Yeah. So basically, I had to wait, process all the information, and only when the information was processed that I started to talk to you. João did a perfect example of streaming. While I was processing and waiting for all the answer, he started to already give you bits and pieces of information. So even though João intervened and didn't want, it was a perfect thing because it showed the two analogies here present, so you could fully understand this.
So this is the big thing. You'll probably just speak X. It's like a complete word cloud.
Yeah.
Coming from you, as opposed to start again talking. But yeah, maybe one is bits and bytes, like the typewriter, probably a little bit.
Yeah.
Like it's coming out sequentially. And the other one is like, I think ChatGPT had this once, I believe. Do you remember where it was like the complete answer came and you had to like read the whole thing? Maybe that was just a local bug I had. But anyway, it was like a non-streaming output, just the whole thing.
So for the voice, actually, the inferencing point for the latency itself to transform the audio, because the answers from the LLM, they weren't that big. It was fairly quick. It was just the debit between the output tokens. It was taking a while. And then sending that to the audio and then streaming the audio. If everything was through streaming, of course, the best approach wouldn't be to send token by token, because the voice synthesis might have been a bit weird, because it's just saying word by word instead of sounding natural and knowing a bit more of what's going to for you to say next. So normally when you do streaming for voice, it's better to do just a bit of sentence, have some tokens before outputting the audio. But I didn't do that because it would make a bit more of an effort and I didn't have the time. But I had more time and already optimized. So whenever we have another, probably it will have streaming.
If we maybe double click, let's assume there is a project maybe in the pipeline for any of you in the audience, or just generally as a company, you're aiming to build a voice bot. Like how would you approach it differently? Maybe João and Bene, both of you. And what would you do the same as in your very fast demo? But maybe what are some elements we need to build on top for corporate ready solutions?
Just to add, the front end not being on Streamlit, first and foremost, everything being on the cloud, and again, adding streaming and paying a bit more attention to security.
I think, Bene, you mentioned that early on, that you started using OpenAI and then you full switched to using just Google, right? That happened like, what, half an hour, an hour into development? Maybe a bit later.
I'm shaking my head saying no. It happened basically I had it set it up already, and then I decided to switch to Google. So basically I changed a bit of the framework to accept basically any cloud provider, and that's when I added LangChain.
So it was a segue to my point. Modularity, or in this case, be as agnostic as possible to the models that you're using. Because OpenAI has very good models, but for some reason, and again, there's a lot of variables here, maybe it's not the right model for you. So you either test it, if you're a company, you're gonna test OpenAI and you run like a couple weeks of this. If you have quotas, if the quotas are big enough to handle your project, or if the speed is fast enough, the quality is good enough, or you could, especially because you can test every single thing, you can build your project and be completely agnostic whether it's OpenAI or Google or Anthropic. You just build it using LangChain or Python AI or AutoCrew. There's a lot of different frameworks. I'm not going to list them all, but you can go online and see. And then you can switch. I think, Bene, it was fairly easy for you, right? Like just to switch from OpenAI to Google to whatever model is best. Because next week is going to be a new model and might be the best model for you. Might be just equally performant, but way cheaper. So might as well use it.
Maybe on the security layer, like what, maybe for you, Bene, what would you have done differently? Let's say it's an insurance company or maybe a pharma company that has some sensitive data. Like what would you have done maybe differently?
I basically would have taken security from the start because it was a POC. Everything was just running locally on my computer. I didn't have any DB whatsoever. It was just using runtime memory. I would add a DB. I would take in probably the code has hard-coded the API keys. It shouldn't. Probably depending on the data that I was handling, I would mask it before sending to processing. These kind of things.
Still some steps for corporate readiness.
Yes.
Yeah, and like imagine compliance wouldn't be too happy that you were storing everything on your computer, like all the audios everyone is talking about, and also all the description of the conversation. So for the podcast and for like a panel is fine, but I imagine if it's a customer center or if it's like an internal tool for a department, that you wouldn't want all the conversations to be logged in a different department. I think that's an ongoing joke. I have a few friends across different companies, and they usually say if you want to talk to the legal department, you send them a text, and they just don't reply you via text almost ever. They always call you because the calls are not logged, and they can say whatever. They can give you the advice you need, but at least there won't be a log with whatever they said. I think they're smart enough about it. I mean, they know the rules and all the laws. It's their department, and so if you're doing a project with that, or at least for compliance reasons, you wouldn't want to store anything in memory or DB. Even if you're putting on a database, I think you'd have to be really careful in how you store it.
Maybe it's one question we received that as a comment on, I believe it was on TikTok. It's like, how do we make sure that when there's like 1,000 customers at the same time, that there is no queue? Because I believe in today's notion, it is you call, right? You call a call center that's handled by humans, and you immediately go into a queue. And then the human voice basically says, okay, all lines are busy. Please wait 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. That's for the last, however long the call centers are around, 30 years plus. This was the human experience. You always had to wait to get to a human. And there's hardly ever been any call center in Europe or even around the world that has a 0 queue time. So now with AI, you should probably not have that. And the reason is technically explainable, but maybe just in your words, how would you make sure there is no queue? And I think that's maybe an overlooked area sometimes for especially companies, because you don't have this queue anymore and your customers are not getting angry. Because most of the time they reach the human and they're like, I just waited 20 minutes in the line.
Always hearing the same
like
sound, the same like little song they have the copyrights to.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like this jingle. Or maybe it's still happening. No. But feel free to challenge me if that's not happening anymore.
No, go ahead, Tro.
Server-wise, you can scale things. If you have a little server, right, that's running your Voicebot, and it's running like the logic of the Voicebot, it's running where to route to, like what information to get to. But the LLM itself is not on your server. Like you're still using, let's say, OpenAI. So your little server is calling OpenAI, getting your voice stream and answering you. And that server can possibly handle like 100, 150 users at a time. And imagine that you're getting a whole lot more users, let's say in a peak hour or because there was a big crash or something happened that made users call you, you could have 2, 5, 10, 50 instances of that server. If each one of them is handling 100, 150 users, then you can handle as many users as you possibly want. Thing is, you still need OpenAI to maybe do the translation for voice to text, maybe do the processing of the text itself. And that quota for OpenAI, again, it's still expandable. It can scale it up quite a bit, but there is a limit to how much you're willing to pay and how much is actually available. So if you're trying to or planning to have a project that's facing like millions of customers, then it's a very good step to make sure that your Anthropic from like in AWS or your Google account can handle that quota. You can always scale it up, but usually the problem or the hard limit is price.
Going back to my question, so one of the things that might be good or not, what's your opinion on having different providers for this? If you have millions, maybe it's better to switch from to have different providers, and I think this is something that we talked back then and a couple of episodes ago. So basically, let's say if the code is good enough, you could switch models and you shouldn't have much difference. And if that doesn't matter much, you could have instances with a load balancer to be sending requests to OpenAI, to Google, to different hyperscalers. So with this, you could manage, because I think when you start to get to higher and higher end, it's just a lot expensive to keep those quotas on that limit with that high.
Even if you're not using like a really high quota, your provider, be it Google, Azure, for Microsoft, like they're gonna be charging you to keep you at a high quota. I have mixed feelings regarding having multiple providers for a single project, which is LLMs have slightly different capabilities and slightly different personalities. So I'm fully in support of if you're having a multi-agent system. So let's say one agent is taking care of this kind of thing, the other agent is like another department taking care of other things. Like they can be based on different LLMs. Like one's OpenAI, one's from Google, one's like it's a different custom LLM that you're running on a server somewhere. Like you can have that. But for the same agent that's responding to the same types of questions, but different people can have different LLMs behind it. So the same agent can have different providers at the same time for different people. I think you're introducing a lot of chaos. And you could be having the possibility, even if a system is built well, you could have the possibility that one person gets a really beautiful answer because the model got it just right. And the other person, because the LLM is not as good, the provider is not as good, then the answer is, well, not as good either too. It's a bit of a mix and match. It really depends on how much your budget is and how you want to handle that kind of cases. Because if your customer base is that big, then you have to find a way to accommodate it. Otherwise, you can always pay for a song and have a little queue, like Cyril was saying.
Maybe just to zoom out a little bit. I mean, there are these new technologies coming in, but they also have complexity attached to them. So it's not just now you have AI and everything is solved. It's always engineering. You always have to make sure load balance just basically means if there is one AI center over flooded with calls, we maybe have to add another one. And the question that we're just discussing for the non-technical audience is if we can use different providers or maybe even the different cloud setup just to balance it, not that we have one that's super busy all the time. And for it to be always busy, they need to reserve a spot for us. And that's sometimes a little bit expensive. Great, gentlemen, maybe some last notions before we wrap up. This episode number 11 for you to go to Brazil. Well deserved after 10, 11 episodes. What day are you flying again? I think on Wednesday, you know.
Wednesday.
You fly to Sao Paulo or where do you fly?
Yeah, I'm going to do, I go to São Paulo and then I will go to the countryside area where is my region, Goiânia, and then to Mato Grosso, the state.
Okay. Oh, good. Sometimes I listen to sertanejo a lot.
Sometimes I hear it a lot.
So here and there, I might ask you a question about the late sertanejo trend in Brazil. From your side, João,
The video.
Exactly.
We'll record the video with the party.
Please do. Put it into This Is the Year group chat. João, from your side,
I still remember
before we
when
wrap up.
asking like plans for travels was like the biggest use case, or one of the biggest use cases that was for ChatGPT. Was like every single website was saying, "Oh, we'll make you like a travel plan." It was basically just ChatGPT saying, "Hey, make me a travel plan for like Berlin or Brazil or something." So if you're there, like you have a full day that you don't have any plans to do anything, just go to Gemini, maybe get a list of things to do to see if it actually gets something interesting and fun. Could be quite
Maybe you can even
spontaneous.
book stuff for you. That's like
I,
the
I will
newest
I
news.
will try that because I don't have any hard fixed plan. Just more or less some couple of days in this city and a couple of days on the other one, and then everything is flexible. So thank you for the tip. I will try, and then I can share on the next or in the few next episodes how it's
Episode
going.
And
number
if it's a terrible
13.
idea, then I have no liability whatsoever. We can just always blame Gemini or the provider you chose.
Good. Gentlemen, let's wrap up episode 11. Thanks for coming. Maybe next time, Benna, you have some tan and then increasingly more for the next 3 weeks. So happy to have you on the episode 12, 13, 14, directly coming from Brazil, getting some coverage there on This Is the Year. But yeah, thanks for coming. It's just for the audience. We shoot these videos every single week. We are active on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on TikTok, sharing insights on day-to-day AI engineering, enabling you as a founder, as an entrepreneur, or as a corporate AI individual to be building these great solutions. See you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.